The Blades Ramble is proudly sponsored by My Business Group, a group of brands designed to support owners, leaders and managers in business. Contact mybusinessgroup.co.uk for more information or follow the link in the description below. And seeing as this is 3MB, we are proudly sponsored by VMB Auto Centres at Handsworth. They're still offering that amazing deal of 50% off your MOT when you let them know that you're a Rambler. Thank you to VMB Auto Centres for their continued support.
Blades fans, subscribe to Blades Ramble. Up the Blades.
What is happening, Blades, and welcome back to the Blades Ramble. I am, of course, Jimmy, and this is 3 Mardy Blades. We have got a lot to talk about, and it all starts with this. Look at this behind the Ramble bracelet my daughter made me for it looks pink on camera, actually, but it's actually purple. Because it's my wedding anniversary today, so we won't be here too long. Otherwise, I won't have a 14th wedding anniversary to look forward to. So let's get the boys in. Let's get talking about all the latest happenings at Sheffield United. First and foremost, joining me, it's Paul, the man, Mountain.
This is the view from the mountain, with a heart so pure it's astounding. Man, mountain, strong and true. What a man, what a view.
Now then, mate, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Jimmy. How are you?
Yes, I'm okay. Thank you, pal. I'm going to actually experiment now. First of all, I need to make sure people can hear me in the comments. I'm sure they can, because we've done this a couple of times now. The next experiment in this new system that we're using, Paolo, is can people hear me when I'm playing stuff like your intro? So I'm going to sing the entirety of Dave the Nose's intro and see what the feedback is. People can either hear me or people can't. And some people might troll me and say they can when they can't. But I'm after some honest responses anyway. So first and foremost, mate, how are you?
I'm very well, mate. I'll tell you what, I'm shocked you got a pass for this one if it's your anniversary, pal. She's gold.
I know,
I don't know what she's doing with you, pal.
I know. Well, she's done very well at me today, let's say that. So go on. If you do this, I don't mind you going on stream tonight. If we can just get this sorted today, because then, and we could also, there's 5 days free in August here where Sheffield United aren't playing. So is there a chance that, because girls are still off school, it's their half term? Do you think we could maybe go away for another 5 days or something? So
mate, timing of the request is always important.
Absolutely right, mate. I've been around a little while. I know how to play the game. We're live tonight. Don't you ever worry about that. And in fact, I didn't know whether this was not a booked in 3MB per se. I asked you lads, I don't know if I asked you today or yesterday whether you fancy jumping on, and you were both like, yeah, thumbs up. Great, no problem. There's always some United stuff that we want to talk about. But from next week, originally, it was going to be, we're going weekly. It's going to be a weekly slot, Sunday at 7 o'clock. And now that means we're already in this weekly cycle. So how exciting is that? But there's not just two of us, is there, mate? There's not just two. There's the main man that we've got again, and he is the main man. I'm not going to have you call him anything else. It's Dave the Nose.
Dave the Nose, he really knows where the wind, I know whispers blow. Smelly brain, he's in the know. Dave the Nose steals the show.
Davey boy, he completes our trifecta. How's it going, pal?
That was dreadful.
No. You see, you two can hear it. You two can definitely hear it. And I could, obviously, Paul were joining in with me there for those that can't hear us. But I'm pretty sure it shows that there's no microphones on. So I'm hoping that means no one can hear anything. We'll soon find out. Didn't hear any singing, Jim. That's what I like to hear. Get in there.
Lucky you, whoever said that.
Right, lads. One place to start. How are you, Dave, by the way, pal?
Can't walk, but otherwise I'm good.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about the football match that you participated in yesterday.
So it's our annual tournament for Aaron's team. So we did a adults one for the first time, 5-a-side, 7 matches, 15 minutes long. and about, I reckon, I came on a sub because we got 6 players. So I came on a sub in the 3rd game and managed about 30 seconds before the knee went, nope. So I ended up playing the remainder of the tournament in goal. And I'm not a footballer, but I'm definitely not a goalkeeper.
Very nice, mate. Very nice. Was there a particular cause? Because you said it was all for a good cause, didn't you?
It was, but it escapes me right now. So
Okay.
thanks for setting me up for that one.
No worries. Yeah, it's always good that you play for a cause that's really close to your heart and that you really care about genuinely. So thank you for passing all that information on there.
I'm gonna get you for that. I am so gonna get you for that.
Well, there you go.
I'll add it onto my list of things I'm gonna get you
all
for.
Charity, Jim. Just
Over charity. Over charity.
A lot of work for charity.
Yeah, it's all gone behind the
What charities
bar.
are you into, Dave? Oh, just general charities.
Just all the
All
charities.
the best charities.
All the
All the best
charities.
ones.
Come on. Let's go.
Oh, it's good. It's not nice. It's not often we get to take the mick out of Dave. Very good.
No,
Very good.
no, never.
It's a great start. So first topic, main topic. Oh, speaking of topics, that's where I wanted to get onto. Well done, Dave. I have to say, at the risk of embarrassing you, took on your first hot topic as a solo presenter. First time you've presented anything on your own on Wednesday this week, were it? It's been released now on yesterday. It went out on Behind the Ramble. Really good. I think you dropped on with a really good group as well. Not that they're not all good groups, but it was a very kind group, wasn't it? Even though it had Jamie Dumpling in it, it was still a really good good panel to have. Yeah, I'll say it, Paul. I'll say it. But yeah, I thought you did a fantastic job, mate. Absolutely owned it. We literally had about 5 minutes beforehand, didn't we, where you were trying to get your head around how to coordinate it, because you'd never steered a stream even with us on it as well. I know you've had access to it for a little bit, but not really used any of it. So I just want to say, well done, pal. Really enjoyed it, and look forward to you both doing a little bit more in the coming season on the channel. So hence, I'm able to go away with Mrs. Ramble for 5 days in August when she spots that I've got a week in my calendar. Need to sort that out, actually. She can't have access to my calendar. That just does not work. So first things first, lads. And look, one bit of feedback, because we are always trying to get better as a channel, and this is something I spoke to the boys about. Particularly, I remember speaking to Paul about it. I don't know if I've spoken to you individually or collectively. A lot of the people are saying in the comments, mostly after the fact, but some shows, particularly when there's me and guests on, or co-presenters such as yourselves, they want to hear a bit more about the conversation between the three of us rather than me scrambling to get all the comments in. That doesn't mean I won't be. I'll certainly check all the comments. I'll pull up a lot of comments throughout, as I always try to do. But I can't guarantee that we will get everybody's comment in. So I'm just letting everybody know right at the top. I don't want anybody to be overly disappointed if we miss your comment in. But I think it was a really strong piece. We always try and include everybody, and I will always try and make you feel like you are part of the stream, and try my best to include what I can. But I don't want it taken away from me actually speaking to the lads. And you know, I could have, if my dad's on, for example, I can't always get through every comment and stuff because people want to hear what my dad's got to say. So I think when it's a solo stream, when led by myself on my own, or Paul sometimes does View from the Mountain, that might be an opportunity where if he's not got a guest on, then he can try and get through as many comments as he can and stuff like that. It is still something that I think is valuable to the channel for me to try and get through everything. But I don't want it to take away from the overall presentation of what we're doing. So I may not read as many comments tonight. So apologies in advance. I hope I'm giving everybody enough prior warning that they're not going to be disappointed. But I do think it's, particularly when there's meaty bits of stories to jump into. And the first one's quite a big one for Sheffield United, because I do think it's got legs to it. And that is Vinnie Souza looks to be on his way out, lads. Now, somebody quite rightly said, if this had been a year ago, before we had seen him in the Championship, I think we'd all be absolutely delighted to be at least more or less getting our money back. There's been some conflicting tales between it. Did we pay 12? Did we pay 14? I'll be honest, I cannot remember off the top of my head. It might have been 14 million euros and we're now getting 13 million quid. It's very fine margins between either a slight gain or a slight loss. But what are your thoughts, first, now that we've seen him have a season in the Championship, or 70% of a season in the Championship because there is availability issues with Vinnie Souza. I'd say there's also consistency issues with Vinnie Souza as well. I think when he is on it, it's a bit like Gus, but in a different context. When Vinnie Souza says yes, as well, this is a Wilderism, I suppose. If he turns up and says yes, he can be one of the best players in the division, undoubtedly. He doesn't always hit those heights, and he's not always as available as you'd like him to be through like niggles and knocks and things like that. Dave, I'll start with you, pal. How much of a loss do you think Vinnie Souza will be to this Sheffield United team? And you can wrap as much context around it as you want in terms of if it means we bring a Tommy Doyle in, if it means we keep Siddy and Arblaster. What do you think losing Vinnie for an alleged 13 million quid to Wolfsburg at the minute, what do you think that means for us next season?
Well, he's going to be a miss because, at times he's looked absolutely unplayable this season. But I would say I think the fee's about right. We signed him for that sort of money as a Premier League player, and we're not a Premier League club anymore. Because he didn't set the world alight in the Premier League, and albeit he's had a decent season this season, I think the money probably there or thereabouts is what we'd expect to get. I know we'd hope as fans that we'd be looking more on this sort of 18 million, 20 million, something like that. But I think we've got to be a little bit realistic that he's not really done anything to justify making that margin of profit on himself for me. A lot of what you're asking is difficult to give total answers to because we don't know who we're going to go out and replace him with, or to some degree how we're going to set up as a team, because Sayers hasn't set a game up yet. But I would, you'd expect him to go out there and bring another central midfielder in, and I'm confident that we'll bring somebody in who can do the job, at this level. Whether they'll be able to step up to the Premier League, we've got to get there first.
Absolutely.
So, and also, whether we like it or not, we have to balance the books in some ways, and that is inevitably going to mean, even if the owners are going to put their hands in their pockets, that we're going to have to see some players go out the door in order for us to make sure we don't fall foul of any PSRs and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's sad in a way. I think he's obviously a character. He seems like a good lad. He's done lots of good things this year, but if he wants to move on as well, then I guess we wish him well and ta-ra.
Yeah, it's disappointing, but it's not unexpected, I would probably say, in terms of we were all expecting that. I think we've said largely, I've said I expect at least one, possibly two to leave, maybe even three. And I think that's maintained. That will still be my thought process. I expect an L to leave. I don't know whether that will happen. It might depend on what we get offered. 13 million for Vinnie Souza. We've already read some comment, or I've highlighted some comments as you were speaking, Dave. And the first couple were sort of saying, what are we doing accepting 13 million? And I understand the thought process, because usually after players have done a little bit of a time with a club and done well, which it's fair to say he's done well last season. He looked very good in the Championship. They were expecting a little bit more. Usually clubs do get a little bit more out of players than what they paid for them if they've been a success or deemed a success. But then there's others that agree with you and think 13 million is probably about right. Paul, where do you sit on the valuation of Souza? Do you think it's a good deal or an okay deal for United if we take it and we spend it, or do you just think if it offsets a sale of a Gus Hamer, for example, then it's well worth taking? What's your thoughts on it, pal?
Well, I think it represents reasonable business, and the reason I say that is because a year ago we'd have snapped their hand off and
yes, we would.
We'd have drove him to the airport ourselves, wouldn't we? But
yeah, undoubtedly,
he really has proven himself, and let's face it, he's unproven at Premier League level. In that, yes, he was part of a very poor side. For me, he showed a poor attitude towards the whole situation from his behaviour on the pitch, and we had the knives out for him. Let's face it, at the start of the season, he has been outstanding, and I guess that for me is about the going rate for a player who is definitely unproven at Premier League level. Definitely.
Yep.
There's no one who could tell me, oh, well, he's good enough for the Premier League. There's a chance that he is in the right team. There is a chance that he would be able to play well and flourish there. But he was very good there for us, and he's been excellent this season. There's no doubt about that when he's been available. So there's a few things in there. He will be on decent wages. His availability has been has had holes in it this season. He's not someone who I'd bank on doing 40 games in any season, based on what we've seen so far from him. And Wolfsburg are a Bundesliga challenging for Europe sort of a side, so they will have a lot of pull. They're probably offering him more money, I'd imagine.
Yes.
And frankly, we dodged every single bullet last summer, didn't we? Because we got rid of what I would call some deadwood, and also we got rid of some players for inflated prices, in my opinion.
Yeah. High ceilings, but nowhere near the ready for first team action, were they? I don't think.
Well, no, but there was Trusty and there was Traore. And
Asula were the first one that came to my brain in terms of sale of the season.
Yeah, and Asula was, you were right, in the high ceiling, potentially. And there's nothing to say that that's happened. He's never looked like a natural goal scorer to me. But he's got potential due to his power and his physicality. But no, let's stick with Vinnie Souza, because he's been excellent this season. For me, it was inevitable. I felt like it was going to happen, because there will be some of those established players whose agents have gone, look, we've given you a season at the lower level. We've given you the chance to get yourselves back to the Premier League. And his agent will be saying he's a top level player, which he was before he got to us. And now he's moving to Germany and they fancy him there. So it's, I thought it was quite inevitable. It is. I wouldn't say I'm not going to be crying in my cornflakes. I think we're well stocked in that position. Who's to say that Sellers wants a different type of player? There was chat about him wanting more of a playmaker in that deep line role, someone physical who can get up and down, like Nzonzi, who has been identified as quite a good value option. And for him, he's probably been tasked with, I've got to balance these books. If I can get Nzonzi at a relatively below half that price of what we've gained in for Souza, then I've got a little bit in the bank to go and ask for some more money for some other players in more needy areas for us. Like you said before, Jim, it's our best stocked area of the pitch. Yeah. I'm not going to be upset at going to war with what we've got. If we got Doyle as well, you'll notice that Doyle's output, and I said this before when we did the Doyle video, his output is actually a lot higher in terms of assists and goals, and his contributions in the attacking third, as well as being able to sit in and do a job in front of the defence. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Some people will say, well, we want 25 million, but you don't see that many people his age in particular leaving for huge wedge from the Championship, especially if they're improving at Premier League level. If you look at Sammy Smodics, well, I don't know, he went for about 9 million, didn't he? Something like that. And there's for a top end Championship footballer, unless they're a young prospect where they look like they're going to go levels and levels above where they are at the minute, you don't see a lot of people going for more than 15 million quid from this division. That's for sure. So yeah, I think it's fair enough. We get our money back on him. We've had 2 years of service, one very good, one what I would call poor. So yeah, I'm happy for him, because he's had a good season and he's earned himself a good move.
Okay. Thank you for that, mate. I agree. Is anybody jumping out at you? And again, this may include players we've already got, because like Paul says, I genuinely believe this is our most stacked area of the pitch. When you think about people who we've got in our ranks, there's a lot of talk that Gus Hamer will move back into the centre this season. Obviously, a very different player to Vinnie Souza. But you're talking about that central midfield area per se. There's 2 or 3 spots available. So Gus Hamer's definitely one of them. You'd like to think that Ollie Arblaster's one of them, as and when he returns to fitness, but Siddy Peck will likely be the holding pattern, if not the actual genuine challenger to that starting berth of Ollie Arblaster. Tom Davies could come back into the reckoning if he can keep fit, because he's a very good player, I think. There's other players there that we can look at. Billy asks, who's an ideal Vinny replacement if there is one? And I'll just tag on to that something that Scott as mentioned higher up as I scroll away to try and find it. Loser has put in a transfer request at Watford, player we really like, who we've talked about before on the channel. Maybe a good option. Watford apparently in a bad place financially, so could get a decent deal done. I think Ben HD were talking about maybe 10 million quid, which sort of defeats the whole object of selling Vini if we're trying to balance the books. Max doesn't agree, thinks he's too old. If we're spending fees on players, they'll be under 23, and Scott saying he's only 26. I don't know if you've seen a lot of Loser at Watford per se, lads, but have you got anybody in mind that would be a Vinny replacement if we went out in the market? Or do you think we have, like Paul's sort of briefly touched on there, we've already got a well-stocked midfield? You could, Dave's mentioned previously, you could slot Andre Brooks back in as a left-sided 8 where he had a lot of success previously. I know he's done okay on the right. He's looked outstanding in small patches on the right-hand side, but he's also looked pretty poor at times as well. Maybe that's a lack of confidence in an unfamiliar position. Maybe moving him back to the position that he came through the ranks, which was a centre midfielder. Does that do him give him more of a chance of breaking in? I think we're well stocked at centre midfield. Vinnie Souza is obviously a hammer blow to lose somebody who's quite unique in that position, to be fair. We need a ball winner in there. Tom Davies could do that job. Can he stay fit? Ollie Arblaster could do that job, some think, and I don't disagree per se. I don't think Siddy's quite that player, if I'm honest. And Gus Amos certainly isn't that player, because you'll get 3 yellow cards every game. And I know you can't technically do that, but you know what I'm talking about, don't you? He's disciplined. He's not the best. I wouldn't want him to be our ball winner. Anybody, lads, that jumps out as a signing or you think could fill that gap?
I was just going to add to thinking back to when we went up, under Hecky and when we went up under Wilder before. We didn't really have what I'd call that midfield destroyer in there that I remember. Now, when we went up the first time, was it?
No.
The
first time it went Lundstrom, weren't it?
Yeah, but Lunny hardly played in Championship. It was Premier League.
In the Championship. Sorry, I thought you said when we first went up on the Wilder, we didn't have one.
When we first went up, as in the time we first went up from the Championship into the Premier League, the Championship season, was playing what, Coopsey, Norwood and Fleck. So I wouldn't have described any one of those three as a particular midfield destroyer. And Norwood, certainly, when we went up under Heck, he's not. And Doyle, I don't think was. There was sort of more, ball playing, deep lying midfielders. So I don't think we necessarily need to go out and sign someone who's going to fit that sort of mold.
I agree that you don't need a 6. You definitely don't need one. But if you're playing with 2 8s, then you leave yourself quite exposed if you don't have one. And
it's all this definition of going 6s and 8s and all that kind of thing. It's.
I'm with you a bit, Dave. I'm with you a bit. There's the old school midfielders who, who I watch on podcasts. Roy Keane's the best one, obviously, of the entire lot.
It's his job. Big baby.
Him and Scholesy are like, do everything.
Yeah, do it all.
Be able to do a bit of everything and be a more complete.
Well, I think Ollie Arblaster can. I think Ollie Arblaster does a little bit of everything really well.
Yeah, you might be surprised. You might be surprised by some of the lads that. I mean, we've got different types of midfield players in there. I think Doyle is slightly different. If we were to get him back, I watched Tyler Morton, who we've been rumoured in the past to be involved with. I'm trying
not to focus on Tyler. I mean, I'm not stopping you from talking about him, but I don't want to get excited about him because I think he's a Wilder target. I might be wrong, and I hope I am, but there's no clear link to Sheffield United about him. And we could drive ourselves balmy with this. Tyler Morton, get in there. Kwame Poku, get in there. He's just gone to QPR. Tommy Doyle, chances are he signs for Birmingham tomorrow. It's one of them that we are falling into that trap of. And it's fine because that's what speculation is about, isn't it? It's, as long as people don't, then it's not a chipping away of the confidence as we lose each player, if you know what I mean.
I don't know, Jim. I think there'll be a lot of clubs who saw his performance in the final of the under-21s, which I watched the other day, and there'll be a lot of clubs going, if he's available for loan, we'll take him. And frankly, we've had mixed success, haven't we? We had Ben Woodburn, who didn't work out for us from Liverpool before, but we have had success with Gibbs White and people like for us. I mean, Wolves should have bought us a few pints on the back of that that deal, shouldn't they? For someone coming in and setting the world alight. He's a young man who'll want games. His agent will be saying that he needs games, and he won't get them in Liverpool's midfield, that's for sure. So it wouldn't do him any harm, I don't think, at his age and his development to come and do 40 games for Sheffield United at the top end of the Championship, in a winning side, in a system that is going to be more like the system that they play out in my brain. I mean, I'm not expecting us to play like Liverpool this season. That's wishful. That's wishful. But I feel like the system that we will probably adopt will be very, very similar to the shape that they adopt. And it may well suit them to send into someone like us. And you know, like you said, you're the king of you know, just wanting to hear about players, mate. And Tyler Morton could be an outstanding.
I do really like him. I really like him as a player. I just don't. It's more a self-restriction than anything else, because anybody can talk about whatever you want, and obviously it's part of the fun of the transfer window is thinking about certain players that could rock up at your club, and that is part of the whole. That's why it's such a successful business thing for Sky TV and everything else, and it works well for our channel and things like that, and media and social media really benefit from it, and it does get fans excited. But also the counter to that is you don't want to, like, if Tommy Doyle, if we'd have bigged up Tommy Doyle, we have to go in for Tommy Doyle. We have to. Look what happened to Jimmy Dunn, for example. There were a lot of people gutted that we didn't get Jimmy Dunn because we were so closely linked to him, and we were very, very. We could have. It were a case of just redoing the ink on the deal. To be fair, to get Jimmy Dunn signed. And the new regime, whether that's Sayers or the ownership themselves, decided to go in a different direction to that. But because some fans, me included, had already pictured him as our right back and he resolves that issue for us in the Championship, you're slightly disappointed when it doesn't happen. And it's a bit of a kick, and it's a little bit like, what are these owners doing then? And you don't want to go down that. It's a negative thought process to go down, and it's a little bit dangerous, I think, to sometimes think of. The one thing I'm going to mention now, though, and I'm going to get into some more comments because I appreciate. I've said I'm not going to flood the stream with comments today as we try a little bit of something different. But I have to mention something that Riley Roberts has reposted. I didn't know about this guy. Riley obviously used to do some shorts work for us on the channel, and he's very good with data and breaks stuff down really well and relates it back to the Blades. So if you're not following Riley J Roberts on X, please go and do that. Give him some support. But he's retweeted something today from an account called GBE Expert Hub. And this is an account run by Andy Watson Sport, who is your go-to place. He calls himself, this is self-proclaimed to be fair, your go-to place for everything in work permits for football in the UK, from research to consultancy. And Andy himself, not this account, but Andy himself has got nearly 4,000 followers. So there's a bit of credibility behind it. He's done a thread. And for those that are my age and above, a thread is where it's different tweets all linked together as the same sort of, it's telling you a story basically in different tweets. So Sheffield United and their ESC slots. This is something that we have been talking about on the channel and haven't really been overly familiar with because it's not something we've delved in before. We have been Chris Wilder FC, which is what's an ESC? I thought that was something on your keyboard that you can go back and sort of erase things. But on February the 1st, 2025, Sheffield United had 4 ESC slots available. Now, if rumours are true, they have none. Let's make a quick appraisal of this situation and see if we can work out their strategy. Out of the blue on the final day of the January window, Jeff Caceres, 22, and Christian Wachukwu, 19, joined. This was sold as identification through a database AI system that was seemingly deployed to find undervalued young talent across the globe. Having a system like this is no bad thing as long as it works. United still had 2 free ESC spots for the summer. Yukaki, 20 years old, joined earlier in June, and Wilder, the manager then, obviously, said it's been identified through our data-driven strategy and is someone we're looking forward to developing. Wilder's then replaced by Sayers, and now, if rumours are true, the Blades' 4th and final slot is being used on Mikhail Polendikov, an 18-year-old right-back. One issue that the Blades fans have is that 3 of these signings have originated from Bulgaria. Another is that 3 seem to cover similar squad positions. So Polendikov is a right-back, and the other 3 are wide men, if you like, / forwards. The fact that 3 have come from Bulgaria isn't necessarily an issue. The signings may have been opportunistic in nature, But if the players are deemed good enough and value in the market, then it doesn't necessarily matter where the players come from. Looking at the Blades squad, wide attacking positions and right back seem logical targets. But the issue is perhaps that these players have been announced as development, ergo not ready to contribute to the first team straight away. Again, it's not necessarily a problem. As long as strategy is aligned and everyone's is on board, presumably this formed part of the coaching changes. Also, this is a club who missed out on Premier League football by tiny margins last season, and fans are expecting that a similar or better result should be possible next season. There is a reason I'm going into this depth with it, and I'll come to it soon. So does the use of all the ESC slots on potential players make sense? Well, it can do. Around 80 to 90% of Premier League clubs use their ESC spots on potential players. Most of them are around 18 years old, and most of them have had little to no impact on the first team matters of that club. Many Premier League clubs are playing the long game. However, most Championship clubs are mixing their slots to use with now players and future players, or solely using them on the first team. This also makes sense. Championship budgets are tighter and they can afford to sacrifice that foreign recruitment budget on long term when Premier League football is the target. There's a long summer ahead there, and there surely must be more first team focusing recruitment by the Blades, and so this may balance out well. The lack of minutes of the January signings is a concern, as both Caceres and Wachukwu cannot be converted out of ESC slots until at least next summer now, until they're sold. Unless they're sold, should I say. Of course, United should be in a position to buy foreign players outright through GBE, which I still don't understand fully, so we'll skip that bit. We should also remember this does look to be a long-term vision, so it cannot be judged now or possibly even for a good while. Tying those slots up to players that doesn't seem designed to be used in the short term does potentially cause problems, though. It's certainly not a straightforward scenario, and the observers should be warned that there is a nuance to what's happening. Certainly the owners and the advisors are smart people, so this is a plan that will have been thought out. So that was apologies for the length of that piece, but basically why I wanted to flesh it out so much was, if what that report is saying is right, we've used our 4 slots. We can no longer use we've no longer any space or allowed to make any obscure foreign signings anymore. It may be a completely different strategy for the first team. We may now see more domestic-based players being linked, which will be welcomed significantly by the fan base. That might be 4 and done, because that's what it appears to be. 4 and done of your development signings, or even your foreign signings without the certain work permit requirements. There are players, like they mentioned in the article or in the thread, Blackburn have just signed a foreign player who had the END, PGE, whatever the other sort of acronym was. He had the right credentials to be signed from abroad, and you can do that without using one of your ESC slots. But these unknown players that we have all been like, who is this guy? Why are we spending our money on this guy? It is a little bit reassuring for me to hear that these are potentially players that are purely there for development reasons. And they are experimental signings, if you like, particularly Caceres, who's a little bit older. That's more of a sort of gamble, will he work, will he not work? But an 18-year-old kid is clearly going into the academy, maybe even under 18s rather than under 21s first and foremost. So maybe that is a line drawn now after the 4th one's come in. And Sheffield United, rather than us fans who were all a little bit concerned about this data-driven approach, meaning, well, that's it, no more domestic signings. That's, you know, and don't get me wrong, we may sign people from foreign shores. I'm not ruling it out. It wouldn't surprise me or anything like that. But it also wouldn't surprise me to see us turn our attention to a Tyler Morton or a Tommy Doyle or somebody that is much more well-known domestically, and there'll be no legal wrangling over whether they can play for our team. Lads, I've rambled on for a long time and I appreciate it. Any thoughts on the potential change in recruitment strategy? And maybe we've all just got a little bit too caught up in this data-driven approach and not let it play out, which is probably always been the plan. It's been a long game and it's a development tool rather than anything else. Paolo?
Yeah, I'm not nearly as worried as you appear at the minute, Jim. Just because
I'm not. Sorry, I don't mean to be misconstrued. I'm not worried. I think it's a better thing for us. I think we have assumed a new recruitment strategy, or not necessarily us, but I think a lot of people have, based on this AI data-driven approach that we're all going to sign all these players from Bulgaria and Hungary and all this, and I don't think it's the case. And I think that backs up what we were saying and hopefully puts some people's fears to rest. Sorry, mate.
I can understand a little bit of where they're coming from. I don't see the problem being if we want a foreign player, we'd sign somebody who was a bit more. If for the first team, you'd sign somebody who's established, probably has the work permit availability, should we say? If that's what this rule is about, signing young kids, like you say, lots of teams do it. They are a punt. You know, if none of them work, it's not the end of the universe. We haven't smashed loads of money up the wall on these lads. They're being signed for a reason. I don't buy the whole AI. Oh, we've seen how fast he can run. This is why we've picked him. There will be more to it than that. And Stella's alluded to that in an interview this week, that AI is being used as a tool, not the primary deciding factor in our transfer policy. Which makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because otherwise we'd all assign Usain Bolt 10 years ago, wouldn't we? And he was not, and it's just not how it works. So yeah, I'm not worried about it at all, to be honest. There's no way that was just going to be the transfer policy, was to pluck unknowns out of nowhere and hope it all gels on the pitch. There's a short-term target. That target is promotion, and like you've said, for people who thought that was going to happen, I never thought that was going to happen. I think it's a decent strategy if you can find yourself one or even two of those, like signing young players. We've seen it with City Peck. 150,000 was his fee, wasn't it? We've plucked from another from another academy, Arsenal, and now he's worth not 10 times, probably 100 times that figure, and that's where not 1.5 million.
No, I was with you with the maths, but it's nice. It's a nice way to put it, isn't it?
And that's where the value is for. That's where the value is for chairman in developing players. If one of these guys ends up being worth 5 million quid, they've got the money back 3 times and they're happy as Larry. So it's that, and like we've said before, their physical output will probably be very, very high, which is probably the reason we've gone. We'll say yes because it's worth the gamble at this stage, to make that kind of signing. It doesn't worry me at all, mate. I think that the positional thing makes sense because they're the areas of the pitch that I think we're obviously centre back as well. I wouldn't like to sign lots of young centre halves because you can be as physically capable as possible, but you've got, for being a centre half, most of it's up here. You need experience. You need people with confidence, positioning. Who can think through a game without being too nervous, and that tends to be what you get at centre half from young players is nerves because they're not. They're focusing on the ball. They're not focusing on what's going on around them. So, I'd rather experience centre halves, but in those wide areas, that's exactly where you want your pace and your power, and you want the guys who can run 100 meters in 10.5 seconds because they're the ones who. There's one thing that people can't defend against, and that's pace. And I'd imagine all these lads are whippets, should we say, across the grass.
Something we've been missing, I think, in our side, to be honest.
100%. And Sellers will know that. He'll see that. He'll look at the output levels of our club in the last 20 minutes of games, which I saw a stat for. We were 17th, was it, or 14th?
Who put that stat in our chat? Who put that? I'll try and find that if I can.
Can't remember. But I was intrigued by that because it made a lot of sense to me. In the last sort of 20, 25 minutes, if the league was calibrated on that, you'd have Leeds top, Burnley second, and we'd be down in the fight.
If anybody can find that, just forward it again in Platinum Chat, and I'll try and bring it on screen for everybody. I think it's a really interesting part.
It supports something we've said, though, isn't it, about the fitness of especially our key players, and how that cost us in the final, the playoffs, cost us against Leeds United. It's a narrative we've been pushing a little bit because it's true. You can't argue with when people have to come off all the time, and we see the physical output of the players go down. That's the thing with Vinny. I think that's where Vinny is shown, is that he can last 95 minutes and still be doing the same things in the last minute as he was. He's going to have to replace, isn't it? Because that's not it.
So, yeah, I love that we're all on the Sayers train. The pronunciation.
Disrespectful.
We're all on the. Let's say his name right, Craig.
All right, Dave. All right, I didn't need it so I struggled with for ages because still when I see it written down, I'm not great with it. But yeah, it's great that we're all getting there in terms of, Drew, should I say, giving him his incorrect name. Dave, any thoughts on the AI debacle in terms of the recruitment and give it the different ways of recruitment and the sort of initial fears that some may have had over how we are doing our business this summer?
Absolutely. I think if you've got tools available, absolutely open to your arsenal. I don't think it means that it's taking over from something else. Let's not forget a couple of years ago we signed somebody we thought it wasn't going to work out, and I'm sure that wasn't an AI-based signing. So, just because someone's unknown doesn't really cheap punts. We're not throwing all our transfer budget at players that no one's ever heard of and we've not seen. We're outlaying a small, or more like the clubs that we aspire, to be in the long term. So I think it's pretty low risk, and I don't think you're going to see the rest of the signings that come in are all of that ilk. They can't be because of what you've just read out. The Jimmy Dunn thing, the Harry Darling one, which we all sat here and we've said the no-brainer signings was how we described them. Poku was another name that popped up a lot, and we said we really wanted, and none of them have gone to top championship. Well, you'd say top championship clubs, have they? So there's going to be a lot happen. I'm not worried at all.
No, I agree, and I think I'm going to put it on screen actually. Something that Paul referred to earlier, and it's Mark Hill. I think I don't know whether it were Ian or Mark, whoever originally posted, whoever it was. Thank you to whoever posted it in our group. And it's basically this will be if the championship or table, if the games began in the 75th minute. So this is basically who tails off the most in the 75th minute. It would be the table in the championship if all games would have started from the 75th minute. Leeds would still be top. Burnley would still be second. Coventry, a team who finished really strongly last season. Bristol City in and around where they finished. Sheffield United would be in 18th position because we start really well.
Look at Sayez's Hull City, Jim.
Sayez's Hull City are sixth in the league. So they come on strong late on. This essentially, and it's not everything because you have to take into the other context about the quality of the playing squad. Leeds and Burnley are the best squads in the league, which we have to acknowledge. Coventry have always had a really strong side. But the rest of it, you could argue, it's a battle of fitness. Fitness is a huge key area of that table. And who can go the hardest for the longest. And we are 18th. And that does not surprise anybody who watched us for 30 plus games last season or more, because it was obvious that we faded. It was obvious to a lot of people that we were hanging on in games. And yes, we would try to make arguments that it's game management. And it is in a lot of ways. It is game management in terms of getting it in front and then being able to see a game out. And in the first half of the season, we were excellent at that. It wasn't hugely convincing, but we did it. We did what we needed to do. And we were in and amongst it. And we were for 2/3, 3/4 of the season, to be honest. And then just as the season went on, and I would obviously mention, I think the defence was significantly weaker the second half of the season for obvious reasons, but also for chopping and changing at right back as well. I think Anel's form dropped as his partner wasn't as strong, and that's a fault of Anel's, which we talk about for differing reasons, not just the Jack Robinson element itself. We were nowhere near as good defensively, and I would I would be interested to see that table split into two halves of the season. A Harry Souter table and a non-Harry Souter table, I think, would speak volumes as well. But that tells us everything we need to know about the fitness levels of this squad last year. And the most obvious parallel was at Wembley when we were in front. Gus Hamer goes off, Tyrese Campbell goes off. And all of a sudden, not only are we not in front, we're behind and we lose the game. Our two best players last season, I'm not saying Tyrese Campbell is definitely the second best player at the club, but he had a fantastic season last year, and he would be arguably up there in terms of that debate is wide open. Michael Cooper's in that conversation. All different types of players you can put in there, but when they went off, that was the difference, and it was a fitness issue predominantly, I would have to say. So Paul's been banging on about it for a long time. We need to be fitter. We need athletes in this side. We haven't got it. It's not just about the athlete in the middle, though, is it? It's not just about that number 6. Like I know we've talked about that Vinnie Souza model in terms of an athlete's build who can get up and down the pitch. It's all over the pitch. You want a huge centre half that can stand strong for 90 minutes. I know they don't overly exert themselves in that position. You're more mobile in other positions on the pitch. You want a centre forward who can go all game and not have to hold his hamstring at 70 minutes. And that's no slight on Tyrese Campbell. And you often change your striker for fresh impetus in a game. I understand that too. But you'd want your top goal scorer to be able to see out a game if it's tight and you want him to stay on the pitch. You want him to still have an impact in the 80th minute rather than fade every single time. So there is a lot of work to do this summer for Ruben Sayers with the players we've already got. Never mind the players that we're looking to bring in.
I was quite surprised because it was a hallmark under when Wilder was most successful.
Yes.
Like Sheffield United, distance covered. We were top in the first season of the Premier League and second in the season we went down from the Premier League in terms of distance covered and fitness of the players. Wilder was heavily critical of the injury record on his arrival for his second spell.
Yeah. And
whether that's played a part in him trying to wrap him in cotton wool and not push him too much in training. And as a result, that's what you get. Because that is a real stain that on his CV, because we've finished third in the table. We've still and that record just says we are not fit enough to see out a full 90 minutes, it's 100 minutes effectively into it with the added time and the other bits.
They've drawn 30 games. 30 games would have been drawn.
Yeah. So yeah, we're not winning a lot of those battles in the last sort of 20 minutes of matches, which
we've lost 9 games in the last 15 minutes.
I think that the Leeds game at the Lane, we were in that, and then we just couldn't maintain the level for long enough.
Yeah.
Now
that's alarming, and Sayers would have said that in his interview. I'm sure he'd say, "Look, I picked this team up bottom. Look at the record they've got in the last 20 minutes of games. 6th in the table with a side that was bottom of the league when I took over. It says about conditioning, and he'd have probably pointed at that and said, "Look, this is what you're getting now. This is what I brought to the table with a lot less talented squad." So it's probably part of his it's part of his plus, isn't it? It's a plus for him, and the owners will know it as well. There's no one knows it better than us in Sunderland about how we dropped off in that last 20 minutes of that game. Even at 2-1, or even when they scored, well, it never felt like we were going to go on and go again. It never looked like we were going to go and nick the win at all. We
looked sloughened from the minute that goal got disallowed, didn't we? And that is on us. That is on us.
Jim, but that statistic has contributed to us not being
absolutely
in a title hunt this season, isn't it? Really, because it's either you could point to squad depth. You could say because the substitutes coming on aren't as good, it means that when we do take players off. But like you said, if you've got 2 or 3 star players and 2 or 3 of them have to go off every game because they're not got the physical capability to go the distance, that's a problem.
And I think
they're difference makers, aren't they?
I think we had a deeper squad as well second half of the season, and I think we were worse performing second half of the season, which is it's mind-boggling, really. The one thing I want to say as well about Ruben Sayers is we are going to get behind him. Obviously, that goes without saying, and I think more and more people are thankfully coming around to that way of thinking. we're Blades and we'll back the team, whoever's in the dugout. If it were Nigel Adkins coming back, we'd struggle, but we'd be there. There's been a lot of rumours circulated online that Ruben Sayers wasn't the board's first choice, and they actually wanted Danny Roll. I've seen there's so many people have sent me a couple of different articles sourcing that as being a legitimate thing. From the absolute best of my knowledge, I can confirm, and I'm comfortable confirming, Ruben Sayers was the board's number one choice. And when you make a decision like this, they didn't sack Chris Wilder because they didn't think Chris Wilder was capable of being a good Sheffield United manager. He's got 92 points. He's beaten Sheffield Wednesday twice. We don't need to go over all the same conversations that we've been having for 2 weeks while we're trying to get our head around the conversation.
Say it again if you want, mate. It's fine. How many times?
Mate, honestly,
Twice.
we all know that he would have had a really strong season with Dave, celebratory. I didn't know you felt that way. I feel a little bit sour towards you now if you're celebrating while they're going with them sort of emojis.
I'm celebrating you saying that he beat Wednesday twice.
He did. He certainly did.
That's
So
what I'm celebrating.
it's undoubted that we would have had a strong season under Chris Wilder. I am of the camp, and I think a lot of us are, that we would at least be playoffs with Chris Wilder. They have sacked him because they identified an individual who they felt could do a better job. It's not a case of, oh, well, 3 or 4 or 5 people can do a better job than Chris Wilder, because it's a very limited pool, particularly at our club at the moment. You have to think about who's available as well. It's not just a case of there's nobody better, but it's a very small pool at the moment, and you'd have to go a long way towards coming. Ruben Sayers was available. They spotted it, they wanted it, and they went for it. They sacked Chris Wilder because Ruben Sayers was available, and that is my strong belief. And I'm not saying if any other manager that they really liked was available, it wouldn't have happened with a different man. It might have done, but I feel like it was partly opportunistic because they saw something in Ruben Sayers that they thought he can lead our new way of structuring our club, and that's where we see us going. I don't think Chris Wilder was ever their man per se. Yes, they gave him a new contract, and I believe it was warranted that they gave him a new contract at the time. I'd want Chris Wilder still here. I don't mean to keep banging that drum, but I have got my head around Ruben Sayers, and I did quite quickly, to be fair, and I think a lot of us are now. The ownership clearly want to go in a different direction, younger, more adaptable, more broader in terms of diversity, and by that I mean sort of speaks multiple languages, could have a familiarity with different leagues that Chris Wilder just doesn't have. I don't think Ruben Sayers will ever match Chris Wilder's domestic knowledge, but that's not what he's here for. He's not here to tell you about who plays left back for Cheltenham Town and whether he's had a breakthrough season or not. I think Ruben Sayers is, well, when I was working in France, there was an up-and-coming player in that team or whatever it might be, or I've worked with a player previously that can. There's all sorts of little different links, and he, from what I understand, I know he's been named manager, but this is a head coach position. It's what we would standardise as a modern head coach's position, where it's more of a collective and a group rather than one. He will front it. He will have the final say, but not to the level of Chris Wilder. It's a different way of running things. And I just wanted to squash immediately any thoughts of Ruben Sayers was a second or a third choice, because he wasn't. He wasn't. There was no. The board believe in this man significantly, and they are all in on him. And that you can't be any more all in on him than sacking an absolute cult hero in Chris Wilder, can you?
Not an entertaining story, though, is it, Jim? If it's much more entertaining to...
Yeah, I know. To say we're going after Danny Roll.
I was going to say he was second choice after you turned him down, Paul.
That doesn't mean that Danny Roll didn't want the job, by the way, to any Wednesdayites listening. It's, he might have come knocking to see if there was an opportunity, but unfortunately
let's face it as well. We are allowed to say this. Danny Roll did really well for Sheffield Wednesday, considering
absolutely did.
The players at his disposal and the situation he was put in. And it's
in different circumstances. He did a good appointment, wasn't it? In different circumstances.
Yeah, when you're looking to replace somebody as high profile as a manager of a top championship club who's expecting to go well, it's naive not to interview more than one person for a job. And it's fair to say Danny Roll did a good job for Sheffield Wednesday. And I'd be slightly concerned that they weren't doing due diligence if they weren't looking at people like him for the position. It again, it doesn't make for a great story saying, "Oh, Sayers was the number one choice, now he's got the job."
And they've got him.
It's a non-story, isn't it? But if your arch rival's manager, if he jumps ship and joined them, well, that sounds like a good one because fans can argue about it. And that's basically what it is, isn't it? At the end of the day, we know what stories are there to do, mate.
Can you imagine?
Sell newspapers, yeah, but it is what it is, and that's fine. They can write what they want. We've got Sellers. There's no point even.
No, you're right.
It's not even a conversation, is it? He's been given the job. He's replaced somebody who's basically a legend at the club. That's difficult enough, and he's the chosen man to do the job, and he's under a bit of pressure. Or the thing that I love the most about this appointment, and I do love this appointment now. I've grown into that. Is that all the players, it feels like, who I read about, talking about him as a manager, all rate him highly. They all have good things to say.
His previous players, you mean? His previous players, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. They all have good things to say. I saw a thing, which I spoke to you about, Jim, about Maitland-Niles, who's just gone down in France with Lyon, and as he said, he was absolutely outstanding with him at Southampton. And there's lots and lots of examples where people who've actually experienced it, not just saying, "Oh, you got sucked by Hull." The players have gone, "This guy is really advanced in his coaching, and it's very different to anything else they've ever had." And they're very, very complimentary of him. So I'm positive about it.
Do you boys fear for some of the existing squad? And I include the superstar names in this, that Sayers is coming in to level up the standards. Particularly, I mean, the first thing you can do with that is fitness and discipline. So he was quite forthright in his welcoming interview with United, and then again with the local press, that it's sort of a non-negotiable that you will work hard and we'll tell you how we want you to play and we'll want you to perform that role as we see it. Well, for a bit of a maverick, Gus Hamer is the obvious example to use, but there are other players that will fall into this category. For a bit of a maverick like Gus Hamer, who we all know, sometimes players are that good that you give them a bit of a license and they get a little bit of leniency. I don't think Sayers will do that, if I'm honest. He doesn't appear the type already to give anybody any sort of inch to want the fittest version of Gus Hamer he can get. But do you fear for Gus if he hasn't got that motivation, if he hasn't got that drive to be that? Do you think not just Gus? Ty Campbell's had fitness issues his whole career. There's other players that we're not going to sort of chuck names out there to sort of make ambiguous claims and things like that. But we've clearly not been fit enough. This table tells us exactly everything that we need to know about the squad's fitness level, not just one or two. Do you fear for some players that they may not be able to meet the standards of the new manager?
If anyone is not fearful of it, he's not doing his job right. He's got to be in there pushing them to be like, I've really got to step my game up. I've got to be on top of what I'm doing. Every single session, every single match, I've got to be performing and improving and working. And if they're not going to do that, then he'd be quite right to say, you're off. You're out of the plans, however good you are.
We touched on this briefly, though, didn't we? But what kind of a statement would it be to leave Gus Hamer out of the side on the first day, for example? We rock up against Bristol City, and we did briefly touch on this, I think, but we rock up against Bristol City, and Gus Hamer's on the bench, and the manager is so brazen to say, well, he's not fit enough, or something like that. He's not quite at the level that we need him to be. It's a huge statement, but it's also a huge gamble.
Other statements. So he'll be judged on the result. He could leave him out and we win, and
so he leaves him out and we draw one apiece with Bristol City. That's a gamble that's not paid off, isn't it?
Right. But you always look at these things and you make any opinion or any decision based on what you know, and we don't know what he'll know. So it's so easy for us to sit there and go, well, you've drawn because you didn't play Gus, but we don't know what's going on behind.
That's true. And we're trying to use that logic for why Rob Holding weren't playing last year, weren't we?
Yeah, we've
and
no
I will
idea.
try my hardest to give Wilder the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And I will continue to do so because we didn't know what went on behind the scenes. But it's mind-boggling sometimes. And it might be the Andre Brooks thing under Chris Wilder. Why was Andre Brooks, when he was in decent form, not getting a kick, or when
Could be a
Raksaki
reason.
couldn't kick a ball straight?
Yeah.
Why wasn't Brooks getting a look?
We don't know what we don't know because we don't know it.
That's very true, mate. Very true. He'll look at Hamer and think there's 25% more we can get out of him.
Yeah.
I think his ability should probably be translating to more assists and more goals. And if he was smart about how he runs, and I don't want to have a go at Gus because he has been a fantastic player for us.
Yes, he has. He's a very easy target, isn't he, for these sort of conversations, and it feels a little bit
shoved out on the left wing. He's never played there in his life.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. And Wilder did say that he wanted to be there. And that was funny. But anyway, I think I'm not someone who thinks that Gus Hamer is lazy on the pitch. I've seen lazy footballers, and he isn't one of those. When he's playing, I think he gives more.
He does. He does, but he stops. He stops at 70, 75 minutes because he's run out of steam. He can't go any further because he's not fit. It's not an effort thing.
Yeah,
it's a fitness and a stamina thing, isn't it?
But he might argue that it's because I'm absolutely killing myself for the rest of the time to do that, and I think because he's heavy set, isn't he? And he looks like he carries a little bit of timber that he doesn't need. It means that. It means that we're quick to go, oh, is he fit enough? But when he's like shoulder barging people and they're knocking him 10 feet the other way, we absolutely love it because that's his build, isn't it? And some footballers are just built like that, and can use that power to get themselves in. And I don't want to make Gus a scapegoat in it, but it is a telltale of our team that table tells you everything. And it's certainly a factor that we'll need to be careful of when we're recruiting this time, and it'll be something that he'll be looking at in quite a lot of detail. Also, you're speculating, aren't you, on what if he does this and what if he does that?
Yeah,
I think he'll be keen to get his best player on the pitch, because, like you say, he sets himself up for a bit of a fall if it doesn't go the way he wants it to. If he's going to be that bold and brash about it and single people out. Again, he doesn't strike me as the sort of manager who's going to come out in public and tell us that anyway. So he might say he wasn't quite ready, or I don't think he'd come out and say he's not fit enough.
And the counter,
was upset.
I agree with that, but the counter to the conversation we're having is, we might get that extra 25% out of Gus. And how exciting could that be in terms of what that man can do? We've seen it. It doesn't mean he's going to be more consistent just because he's fitter, and there are some consistency issues at times. But we judge Gus to a higher standard than everyone else, unfairly at times, because he is a better player than everyone else in the division, I would say. And that is the untapped potential in this lad that we have seen from time to time. It's not like a ceiling that he never meets. It's that postage stamp free kick against Coventry. It's the little threaded through balls. It's the control from a very good long ball from Jack Robinson to slot through Ty Campbell or Ian Brewster. There's all sorts of moments that we can hang our hat on that Gus Hamer has turned a game individually for us at times when he's sometimes been 80%. If we can get 100% out of Gus Hamer, he could turn us from not only from a mid-table to a playoff side, he could turn us from a playoff side to an automatic promotion side.
I am convinced that if he was playing in the middle of the park and he was giving it absolutely everything, I'm not saying he's not, but he's giving it absolutely everything in training, you will consistently see 90 minutes out of Gus.
Do you think it affects Wilder's reputation a little bit if Gus stars for us in central midfield rather than the left?
No, because I think life has to move on and it's a totally different environment. But how many times have we watched Gus sprinting back to stop a counter attack?
To grab someone's arm? Yeah, we did.
Yeah, I know. He was giving away yellow cards and stuff. But one of the reasons of that'll have not helped with him getting past 70 minutes is having to do so many of those short bursts of high intensity sprinting. He's not going to have to do that if he's playing in the centre of midfield. And I'm not saying he doesn't need to he doesn't need some help with.
He don't need to come back
fitness
across.
level.
He don't need to come further than the base of the centre circle, really.
But you're not talking about him having to transform him from what he is into a completely different person.
No, you're not. That's true. Very true.
And that might be in the thinking of selling Vinny, because I think he has played in centre midfield at times and dropped into the two last season. And one thing that we observed from him in that moment was that much more output from Cal O'Hare and much more output from the forwards, because he was the one that was getting on the ball and breaking the lines between midfield and attack and playing those first time balls. We made some really good goals with him dropping into central areas. Ball comes into feet, quick one around the corner, flashing balls in at pace into the forward. He never ever trickles a pass. He always goes bang, which is a bit of a telltale of a top player. All the top players have always done that in terms of the quality of the passing, and he has got that. And it may be that Sayers just thinks, well, I'm going to drop Hamer in there anyway, and I want a proper winger, because he's already spoke about wingers. I'm desperate for wingers. We've been on about it for donkeys. And Hamer doesn't fit playing out wide. In fact, I'd probably, if you've got Cal O'Hare available and you've got Gus Hamer, you play Gus Hamer in a two with either a blaster.
I was just going to say that. Does I know we've talked about 2-8s because that's strong things that are coming out of the club, but that can always shift. I mean, we might not have been expecting this Vinny bid when them conversations were happening, so it could easily be Arblaster and Vinny, Arblaster and Hamer. Cal O'Hare back in the 10, and then 2 new wide men, couldn't it? That could be the starting midfield. And
I'd far rather, personally, based on the personnel available in centre mid, I'd far rather we spend that money on wide players.
Yeah, me too. I think as well, there's got to be some. I mean, again, moving away from this data-driven approach, which I'm going to try and catch up on some comments, because I appreciate we're not going to focus solely on comments tonight, but there will be some discussion around that data-driven model. But if we're moving back to more domestic-based players like a Louis Barry in this side, rumoured £4 million for a left winger that absolutely ripped up League One for the first half of the season last year. Young lad, will have sell-on value. So even if he tanks, we'd still get £2 million back from a £4 million deal. Then I just think that is a no-brainer of a signing. Get a Ben Doak on other side on loan with an obligation to buy if you're promoted or something. And I think we're off to races, aren't we, with another...
The other good thing, you mentioned Louis Barry there, is that Louis Barry chose Hull under Sayers to go play for. Now, Louis Barry was red-hot property, and we were interested, definitely. We went for the safety of BBD as proven goals in the division.
We did.
Over a young lad who's a prospect. We chose Sayers to go to Hull, and that was a big, big, big surprise. And it means that we probably do have the inside track when it comes to trying to get him to come and play for us, because of that, because he must have chosen him for a reason. And the other thing I said about it, all the players loving working for him, that news travels as well. So that players speak to each other about managers. And if he's carrying a reputation where the players that work under him are really happy and they feel like they're moving forward and advancing and getting better, it can only be good for Sheffield United.
I agree. There's a couple more saying that I really hope this isn't true. It's a rubbish fee for Vinny, 13 million, when we don't need to sell. He's 2 years left on his contract. But the comment I'm going to get to is, I'm actually worried for next season, says Cody. Selling our best players and slow to signing players. Ruben doesn't fill me with confidence. All the best and free players are going elsewhere. Now, we've discussed Ruben Sayers and what we're not going to go over at the same ground, Cody, because you obviously commented that over an hour ago. But we've discussed that we're quite confident in Ruben Sayers, I think, collectively, and I think the fan base is coming round to that way of thinking in terms of getting a little bit excited with this man at the helm. Another notable criticism has been the lack of speed in recruitment. However, I don't think any clubs have made any significant moves so far. That's the first point to raise. The second one, and the real point, is the players come back for training on Tuesday this week. It would be odd, I think, in a lot of ways, for him to have already made the decisions without meeting the players and getting an understanding of what they're like as people. He will have an idea. He might want to say to people like Ryan Brewster, face to face, why I'm releasing you. Or he might want to say to Jack Robinson, maybe, I appreciate you've done a great job as a captain of this club, but you're not going to be my captain going forward, or something. That he might want to lay the foundations of his plans to the current squad first before going off to the races and bringing in a left-sided centre-half without speaking to Jack Robinson. Or that might be the way that he wants to operate. He might also be on the fence about some players. He might have heard that Callum O'Hare, this is a complete fabrication, by the way, but he might have heard that Callum O'Hare's got a terrible attitude, which we've not heard of, and I've no reason to believe that's true. But he might have heard this, for example, and before he looks for a replacement number 10, he wants to say, sit down with Callum O'Hare, get to know him a little bit, what makes him tick, and how can I get the best out of you, rather than looking for a replacement number 10. All these sorts. He might want to speak to Andre Brooks. Do you want to play out on the right wing for me? And do you want to try and make that position your own? Because I'm going to bring someone in to strengthen there anyway, and you could be my competition. Or do you want to return to an 8 position and you're battling with Gus Amer and you're battling with Ollie Arblaster / Siddy Peck, or whatever it might be? I think he's getting the foundation right first. I think that will be the plan. Have a look at what you've got. He'll have 80% in his mind, or probably more, 90 plus of what he's going to do. But I think he's giving them first the common courtesy, but also giving himself the absolute assurances that these are going to be my men moving forward. And before I tell this man that he's not part of my plans, I want to sit down and tell him why, and I want to explain things. I am not overly concerned about the lack of speed at the moment. Now, fast forward 4 weeks, if we haven't brought anybody in, I'll be panicking. I'll be starting to panic if we've not been seriously linked with players and we're starting to
Not the season.
Well, yeah, apologies. Yeah, well, we'll still be a week away, but
I think it's a really good point. Can you just imagine a scenario where you use Jack Robinson as an example?
Yes.
So let's go there. So imagine you're Jack Robinson, and while you're on your off season, your holiday or whatever,
lying on a sun lounger,
you find out that the manager of the club has been sacked, and he's got a replacement coming in. And before you've even gone back and spoken to him, a player is signed in your position. And you're going to be thinking, well, that's not me. That's me not playing then. So immediately when you walk back in on the first, you're in a terrible mood because he's just basically signed someone to replace me. Or you're already onto your agent going, get me out of here.
Yep.
I want to speak to people because clearly I'm not fancied. And that might not be the case. You're playing. You're having to backtrack and play and do firefighting as a manager, saying, "No, you are still. Maybe you are still the first choice, but I've wanted to bring somebody in just in case, or we're going to play slightly differently." And you're then trying to sort of recover a situation that if you'd have just waited a little bit, you wouldn't have had to recover because you've already dealt with it out front. So I'm like you. Give it, let's give it. I mean, he's not even. He'll be working, no doubt, but he's not really working in anger till everyone's back. So let's give him a few weeks before we start to really wonder what's going on. But I think we'll be cracking on.
Obviously, he'll have preconceived ideas about certain players because he'll have watched, he'll have played against, he'll have ideas. But as soon as they come in the first training session, his first speech will be something like, "This is how we want to do it. This is our plan. This is our aspiration. And you're all on a clean slate because as far as I'm concerned, I've got to pick a side." And that's how these things usually pan out. Yes, he'll know who the better players are. He'll know who's got plenty in the bank. But by the same token, there's players who play for certain managers and go like this. And there's other ones who play for certain managers and go like that. And like you say, he's got to fit the way that he wants them to play. And like you said, he's not going to do that before they've even come back. He hasn't even seen a training session yet. So it wouldn't surprise me if he said, "Look, we're going to have 8 days of intense preseason training, attitude. Obviously, what I see in the games and stuff that we do in the afternoons or whatever it is they do are going to make a difference on where I think we need to strengthen to fit this system." And I'm sure the players will come in and go, "I want to impress." And you never know, you just don't know how we'll go about it. But like you said, it's not a surprise to me that he's not bought loads of players. And like you said, most of them will still be on their holidays until probably the day before they have to go back to work. So
Daniel says here, "Good day, Jim. I'm personally not too worried about the lack of signings. Remember last summer and how long it was before we got anyone. The first incoming was the 4th of July and the second the 12th. up the blades. So there's loads of time. There is loads of time, and I agree with somebody made the point last stream that they asked me how long, and I said 10 days, and I think the 11th day or the 9th day, one either side, was the same as the day last season when we first signed the player. So it's because there's been so much change, and that's why people are starting to get a little bit twitchy, I think. Jimmy, on a serious ramble here. Looking forward to seeing these lads in pre-season, see what they're about, says Zonny. Max says, surely these signings that use AI is for development players, and the first team signings will be decided with Hoyland and Sayers. Well, Hoyland's a scout at the club. Mikey Allen's still there, from what I understand. Danny says, don't need a wrecking ball to midfield. Sellers put Vinny, didn't want to stay, so why keep him and upset the dressing room? Yeah, if a player wants to go, and that doesn't mean he doesn't like it here, but it's been the worst kept secret. He's talked about it in his own, I don't know whether it was the Brazilian media or certainly on foreign shores, that he expressed the desire to be part of the Brazil squad. Whether you believe he's good enough or not is a different conversation. A fit, firing, 100% Vinnie Souza has got half a chance, I think. Half a chance. But it won't be with Sheffield United in the Championship. And if he's playing in Europe with Wolfsburg and he manages to keep their main playmaker quiet of the opposition and things like that, he suddenly gets noticed. He's going to have to do a lot of things right personally, but you can understand from his perspective why he might want to explore other opportunities at this point in his career. It's no slate on Sheffield United, and he clearly loves it here because of the way he goes about his business. He's always got a smile on his face. He's got very good pals within the squad. He's settled here. He's had his child here. All these sort of things. But he wants to do what's best for his career, and it's a very short career as well. They will be, like Paul says as well, they'll be paying him more money than we can. We're in the Championship. We have to be realistic. And let's be honest, would we want to match whatever wage Wolfsburg offer Vinnie Souza? If they're offering him 40, 50 grand a week, do we want to spend that part of our budget on that when we could get Tommy Doyle in on less than that? Dare I say it? Or we could level up Gus Hamer on a new contract or something like that. Would we want to do it? I don't think we level up Vinnie Souza. I don't think we would. I understand why he wants to leave, to be honest. Oh, hang on. Sounded like Daleks. Audio's gone. What's going on with the audio? Well, this isn't very good, is it?
Oh, no.
3 Mardy Daleks. Stephen Hawking has risen. We are back. I don't know how long that lasted. Only a minute by the looks of it. I don't know what happened there. Oh, well, that was some interference, wasn't it? So thank you for letting us know. I know it can't have gone that far wrong because I normally get 3 or 4 phone calls on stream, and that's when you'll see the panic in my face. But yeah, it's
Jamie.
Yeah. Usually, it's Ian that normally sorts me out. To be honest, I can see Jimmy panicking. Says Steve. It's gone really weird though, Jimmy. But I don't panic. It's giving me a laugh. I wasn't panicking because I didn't know what had gone on, mate. So I might have been panicking about what's happened with the transfers. So okay. Sayers is definitely aware of our lack of pace. His whole side targeted this very successfully last season. We were stretched to breaking point. Bry says, like, subscribe, and share the channel, folks. We're all welcome in the Blades Ramble family. It's totally free, by the way. Thank you, Bry. This is a point that I have to thank Paul the Man Mountain for saying, Jimmy, you do not talk about this enough. Yeah, you did. You've done me a huge service with that because, yes, we offer a subscription service that you can support us further if you choose to do so. It's never expected that you do that. It's always greatly appreciated for those that do. But to subscribe to the channel on YouTube is completely free, and it really helps us out. And to like the video is also completely free. So thank you for that. I think there's sometimes a little bit of cross wires in the messages that I send. So I need to be... And since I've been doing that, we've had a massive bump in subs. So thank you to the Man Mountain for helping me clarify that with people.
Hit the bell icon.
Hit the bell icon too. Yeah, that will let you know when we're going live and when you can watch the 3 Mardy Daleks, as we have been christened now. Would have been better off parking the bus first half and bringing Hamer and Campbell on at half time every game. Oh, dearie me. King says better attacking football. For me, Sheffield lost all the big games. That's why owners moved on with the manager. We did lose the big games. That cannot
Stayers
be.
had a great record against Leeds, Sheffield United. He put a team together to play against them, didn't he?
He did, and we did not. 12 points, 6 to Burnley, 6 to Leeds. If we'd have got 6 points off Burnley, we'd have gone up. If we'd have got 6 points off Leeds instead, we'd have gone up because it would have this swing between. So people talk about those 3 horrible games towards the end of the season, which clearly had a huge dent on our confidence as a side, and obviously the Wembley game itself. But those are parts of the season where we could have tied it up earlier as well.
If we won those 3 games, we only needed to draw against Leeds or Burnley once.
Thanks, Dave.
That's the long and short of it, isn't it? We lost 3 games we shouldn't have, and we failed to get a point against the top 2.
But we were shipping goals in the last 20 minutes of all of them.
Yeah, we were, because even the Burnley game we all watched together. You know, when we got back in back level through Cannon, we couldn't keep it going, could we? So that is a really powerful thing that's come out.
Yeah, it is. It is. If Ruben demands hard work and non-stop running, then Callum O'Hare will be high on the list of his favourite players. I'm just really interested. I agree with you, Mr. V, but I think I'm really interested to see where he fits in with this side, because it certainly doesn't mean he doesn't play. I couldn't see him playing with a 10. But the more I think about it, I think Paul's right. I think it might still go with a 4-2-3-1, but we'll just see it in a completely different style of play in terms of using your wingers as wingers.
And I think he'll drop him deeper. I think he'll drop Cal
into more of an 8. You think?
Yeah, I think like you said, it'll be the 2 of them. If you got O'Hare and Hamer there,
I love it.
One behind, and then you've got your 2 wides and your centre forward. You know that's pretty good. And just asking him not to just go and stand behind the striker, because they can do that. They're fit enough lads. I'm sure they're capable. I thought Cal O'Hare was more of a deeper player at Coventry than he was for us anyway. So
I think that comment there, you made it a long time ago, Paul. We were talking formations for whatever reason, I can't remember, and you were talking about shape with and without the ball. And I think what you're talking about there, whether it's 4-4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, O'Hare, between that 2, that's the flexibility of it. That's just how they move about.
He can be given a bit more of a license, can't he? As that player, particularly in possession as well. Matt says it's a good point. If the whole squad become fitter and more athletic, we may only need another 10% out of Gus, as it'd be better supported across the squad. Yeah, it's certainly not down to individuals, is it, in that respect? It's not. We're not pulling Gus out as being. It shouldn't have to be anyway the one difference maker. And I think you're more vulnerable as a club if you've got one player that you particularly rely on. But it's when you've got a player of that talent, that's why we naturally focus on him. But you're right, Matt. It shouldn't be that way, really. Get Jason Knight signed from Bristol City. Jason Knight I really like, but isn't he a centre midfielder? And I just think we stocked, aren't we? We stocked in centre midfield. And I know Vinny's going, so that there may be an argument to get somebody in that position now, but I think we've got the recruits currently in that centre midfield. Bri again says, like, subscribe and share the channel. It's totally free, by the way. Thank you. Mr. V. What's Mr. V been doing here? Because people are thanking him. He's gifted 5 Blades Ramble memberships. Of course he has.
Top man.
Mr. V. It doesn't show me on here. Again, apologies. I have put that forward to Stream Builder, but Mr. Vancouver, you absolute legend. Thank you. Maury says it's all right going gung-ho with signings, but sometimes signing a lot of players too soon can upset the apple cart. Really good point. Really good point. You come back in, like Dave says, you come back in on 1st of July and there's 5 new faces sat there thinking that they're going to, they're going to replace it. What you know
why he said that, don't you?
Why is that?
What's he always playing on him, putting pictures?
Football Manager. Yes, he has. He's upset the squad dynamics on Football Manager.
What happens on Football Manager when you give yourself 100 million or 1,000 million, whatever is a billion, and go, oh, we'll sign everybody, and then it don't work. And I was like, what's happened here? Oh, yeah, because there's no cohesion. That's Football Manager. Maury, I know your game, mate. Don't you worry about it.
You're not wrong, mate. So yeah, that's people thanking Mr. V. Bryce says thank you. Toddy says, Mr. V, thank you for the gifted memberships. What a legend. Riff says, my point about Jeff moving on to work permits is because he's playing for a top 50 is wrong. 50 place teams need 70% national games for our youth team played in 2 years, where a top 10 needs 30%. A bit too technical for me, that Riff, at times, to be honest. But yeah, ultimately, the 4 players that we're on the verge of signing the 4th, there'll be no other work permit slots available for Sheffield United, which again, as we touched on earlier, may see us shift to a more domestic-based approach for the first team. Michael says Ipswich are losing some of their better players. The Australian international Cameron Burgess has gone to Swansea. Good signing for Swansea, that. Swansea's just left for Burnley, and star player Amari Hutchinson is in demand. Yeah, the big one for Ipswich is obviously Liam Delap as well. They are going to be sat on a fortune at Ipswich, so I don't sleep on them at all. I don't think they're going to lose 3 or 4 players and then drift down the league. They've still got Kieran McKenna. The manager, for me, is always the most important person at the football club, and I think he will rebuild and get it right. So they have a lot of money. They will spend the money. But a little bit like Blades are talking about, Ipswich fans surely won't be panicking that we've not brought anybody in yet, because they'll know that will come. That'll happen. Cody says, thank you, guys. You've helped me to be positive. Due to my learning difficulties, you guys helped me a lot to understand. Thank you. Cody, that's a lovely thing to say. And we do. I'm loath to go one way or the other, because I never want to be seen as somebody who spins something, but I'll never shy away from being positive about United, and I will always try and look at the positive side. Having said that, we have to acknowledge all sides of the argument. So people may still be really upset with this decision, and that's understandable. People may be very worried about the recruitment, and that's understandable too. But we can only tell you, and we'll do it individually as well. And tonight we've pretty much unanimously agreed on a lot of things, and I think that's probably a first for all 3 of us. But usually we're all happy to give our individual opinions on stuff, and it won't always line up with each other's. So we're always going to be a platform that allows you to speak how you feel, what you feel is right. But for you to say that it's sort of changed the way you feel about things and it's helped you, honestly, mate, that is one of the strongest things.
Right. People see this as a safe space, and that's the best thing about it. It's the absolute best thing about it. Things that people disclose and things that people want to share is because they know that we're respectful of people, and that's what we are. And that's a really nice thing to say, Cody. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Cody, mate. Appreciate it. He's got them in. I think the signings will come, says David, the runner blade. Nice one, Cody, says Bright. Always keep it Ramble, mate. We'll look after you. We certainly will. Lewis says, Man Mountain has nailed it. Maury using squad dynamics in Football Manager. Maury's a legend. And Maury says, I've done that plenty of times. Mark Meldrew says, give us 1 winger each who you feel would be an improvement on what we have or had last season. I've already nicked 2. I've said Louis Barry on a permanent, and I think that is available, and I think it's something to go for. I think I'm just taking these 2 early doors. Ben Doak, I'm going for as well on the right. So I'm only going to ask the lads for 1.
He's all right there.
I'm only going to ask the lads for 1, but I'm taking out the two hot properties that are Louis Barry and Ben Doak. Dave, Paul, who's your pitch for a different?
I'm going to get in there early because he looks like he's thinking, so I'm going to say it. But I'm going to caveat it by saying that this was one that Nathan, who is a part of Aaron's football team as well and is a Rambler, suggested to me. So it's not 100%. My pick, but I really like it, is Jonathan Rowe.
Oh, Jonathan Rowe from
no chance. He's just come off with the 21, scored the winner in the final.
I know. But if we don't sign him, then I've said it was suggested to me and I really liked it. So
yeah. You've caveated it with it were actually Nathan's suggestion, but you have also been the first to mention it on stream. So you've padded it all the way around, haven't you? Really? So
that's what I do.
I like it.
I'd have Murphy from Portsmouth.
Would you?
Yeah.
It's got to be a good deal, that. If the deal's right, I like it, but it's a risky one of costing you a lot of money.
I agree.
Do you think so? Do you really
because
think
I don't think I'm not convinced he can step up. So it could cost you a lot of money to get up.
I think he's a purple patch player. To be honest, I'm not sure.
When I've watched him last season, I thought it was excellent.
I agree.
I thought
think
it was excellent for Oxford. I saw him in the final for Oxford. He was brilliant for them. I think he'd be his cup of tea, I'd say.
possibly,
as a domestic player.
Possibly.
The deal's got to be right. I like him. I just think there's a because he's had 2 good seasons. I think the number could be higher than this. Maybe a bit realistic.
You really think so? I think we could double his wages in a heartbeat. It wouldn't be a problem.
It's not just the wages, though, is it? The transfer fee and everything. It's the transfer fee that I think.
Yeah, I think Rowe would be about $500,000, wouldn't he? And then Doe could be.
That'd be a loan, mate. Rowe would be a loan.
Doe could cost you about 5 times Murphy. I'll just put that out there.
Yeah, but he's also got a higher ceiling, hasn't he?
100%,
he should have, because he cost a bomb.
Yeah. You're comparing apples and oranges here.
Do you know what I mean? We don't always agree.
You're digging my choice. Oh, the money. Yours would be a lot more. A lot more.
I know it'd be a lot more, but I'm saying that the return on investment's higher, potentially.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what then. We'll go for Saka or Gordon, shall we? Let's do that.
Behave yourself.
It'll be facetious.
It costs a lot of money for its return on investment.
It'll be facetious, Paul.
I think Rowe is a huge stretch. I don't think we'll get Rowe.
No, I don't now.
But I think Doak is a real shout. He's a real shout. And
as a what?
Don't Everton want Doak?
Pardon?
As a purchase.
Everton want him.
No, they want. I think they want him as a signing, a permanent signing. I think it's probably going to be a little bit like Raksaki was last year, where they're probably reluctant to let him go initially, and particularly to a rival. But if we could get him on a loan with an obligation or something like that, not that they'd do it if they've got the option to sell him to Everton. I understand that, but I don't know. I'd like to see it. I think a straight loan if we can't get that done, because I think he improves us.
Undoubtedly.
I think. And I understand what Paul's saying, but I think sometimes you have to aim a little bit higher.
Would you take Ramazani or someone off Leeds United if they want to up level their reserve options, or someone in those wide positions?
Of course, I'd take him. I'm not sure we'd get him, if I'm honest. I'm not sure.
No.
Yeah, I'm not sure we would. Well, I mean, at the minute they ain't got Solomon back, have they? So Ramazani might start from in Premier League. So.
It's more likely Nonto, isn't it? I'd say.
Yeah, but then Ramazani or Nonto, they're that flexible. They'd have 3 quality wingers as opposed to 4, wouldn't they, at Championship level? And whether it's Nonto or Ramazani that starts, the other one will play because they'll be the one to come on. So anyway, Ben Doak, please, says Lewis. Take the chance. Jimmy said it as I typed it. I had said it because I think we've mentioned it before in the stream as well. To be fair, I'm not going to take full credit for that. Maury wants Ben Doak. Must have signed him on FM and he's done really well. Has anyone checked in on Sayers? The more I watch that video of the bloke outside John Street, I think it could be true. What bit? Oh, right. Okay, yeah, dear me. Riff says no to Rowe after how he forced his exit from Norwich, refusing to play. It was unprofessional. He also says misunderstanding on the visa comment, Jimmy. That does not surprise me, Carl. The 4 ESC slots are taken, so we can't buy any untested foreigners, but can still buy a full team of foreigners that have played X percentage full or youth games in 2 years. Yeah, so I understand it to that level, Riff. Thank you for putting it in layman's terms for me, but I understand it to that level as well. So if they are more established foreign talent, then we can still purchase them, and we would still do that, I'm sure. And we have a much better awareness of them than we did maybe 2-3 years ago. But the untested foreign talent, which is a good way of putting it, who wouldn't necessarily qualify for a work permit, will now be off the table. So it won't be a case of just bringing in random people to start for us. Jack says, do the 3MB think that out of style... Oh, hang on. Keep getting comments, so it pushes it up. Think out of style play has an impact. Our style of play has an impact on our fitness in the last 15 minutes of the game. We often struggled to hold on to the ball at times last season. The playoff final showed this. Lads? The style of play has an impact on the fitness and what's demanded of the players?
Well, this for me is the big question. Jack, what would you say our style of play was? Because
you have to turncoat you.
Right.
Mate,
You are. You have taken that knife and jabbed it firmly in Chris Wilder's back. You.
mate, I have not. I have not. You tell me, Jim. Tell me what if we were
Winning,
Football Manager,
winning
what would our-
football. That's what
would
it
our
was.
philosophy
We won the
be?
most games last season. We
No, we
won the
didn't.
most games.
Jim,
No, we
answer my
didn't.
question. Come on,
We did.
stop
We played
trying to
49
drown me
games.
out. Stop trying to drown me out and listen. What would you say was our method of play? Because when we first went up, I would say that we were a wing play team, a team who went down the flanks, used the centre backs to overlap. We overloaded in wide areas. I would say that Leeds had a clear method and what they were trying to do, and I could name it for you. And also Burnley. What would you say was Sheffield United's style/method of play last season?
You're stitching me up here because I've said it on stream quietly before. I don't think we had one. I think we relied on our better players.
Oh, the knife, the twist, mate.
Don't make me say it out loud.
You and I both know what it was, and that was pass the ball to Gus.
Yeah, it was.
That was what we were spoke. That was our method last
Isn't
season.
there a T-shirt that you can buy, Paul, for that?
Oh, nice.
Sorry,
There's a T-shirt you can buy that if you want to
There
tell
is.
other people about that, isn't there? Can we post the link in the description below so everybody
well,
can...
yeah, he didn't put them in there, but that's all right.
I should, mate. I will. Not that I've seen a penny out of any of that, but
No.
anyway. Lee says a winger to look at for me would be Chiriac Iri from Troyes. Yes, I will. Maybe so, Lee. I'll take your word for it, pal. I'm going to have to start wrapping up here because the point in not getting in too deep dived into the comments was that we could stick to a reasonable time of the stream. We're now well over an hour and a half, and Dave's tea's going cold. So Louis says, going back to Jack's comment, yes, I do think our approach, reserving my Mountains comment on style of play, did cost us. I remember coming out of the blocks versus Leeds and Sunderland, and we dropped off in both. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Lee says it was a big Wilder backer, obviously, because we've heard it before on previous streams. There was a style of play, but without nuance. Anyone can make a lazy comment. Come in peace, but I think you can do better. There you go. There you go. Fair enough. And everybody, I know you come in peace, Lee, and you're entitled to your opinion, pal, but I did not see a pattern of play to what we were doing last year. I didn't see any. You've seen it in previous, and Wilder can do this because we've seen it in previous years with the three at the back where we draw people onto us. We will go outside them. The overlapping centre backs was the highlight, if you like, but it was also playing in triangles at the edge of the box to draw players out. We used to double up at the overlapping centre backs meant that we had an extra man in the attack, so we could draw players out of position and create space in the middle, and we get the ball into the middle quickly then and go to the byline and pull it back. George Baldock. How many times was George Baldock on the end of an Ender Stevens cross or the other way around? There was a plan. There was a plan, and I didn't see that last season personally. And that's just my opinion. And obviously Paul agrees. I'm not sure where Dave is on that. Right. I think we are going to call it there, boys. Anything else you want to talk about tonight? We are now a weekly show, so we will be back and we'll try to keep it a little bit shorter than this because I appreciate Dave's tea is going to be cold now. And I will be... Well, there you go. There you go. So, lads, any final thoughts on anything that we've discussed tonight?
Be positive. Lots of good things are going to happen. It might be a little bit of a bumpy road. But
I feel like this is the way it's starting to go, though, mate. I think people are becoming a little bit more optimistic about it. Some are frustrated at the lack of pace, and I understand that. That's natural, but I think overall, from where we were a couple of weeks ago when people were very disgruntled and a little bit upset and didn't like how it was handled, I think a lot of people have got their heads back together and are sort of on board with things again a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
I still think we've got an excellent squad at this level. We've got an excellent squad. And I think we need to remember that. And like you said, there's areas we'd like to improve, but I won't be crying over players that have gone free transfers that haven't gone our way. I think if we'd have shown the appetite, we might have got one or two in. But it's the new manager might have new ideas, and we'll see how it all pans out. We will have to wait. There'll be 4 or 5 weeks. People will still be scratching and thinking, where's this player coming? But just remember where we were. As well pointed out in the comments, this time last year we hadn't signed anybody. The signings won't kick in until the middle of July for me. Will be when he's assessed the squad and seen where we are and what he thinks he needs, and then he'll probably push the button on a few that week. There's one thing I do know is the new owners will not be sat on their hands. They've brought in a brand new manager. They've got to prove to the fan base that they're going to back the new manager for the new season, get the fans on board, and support what is their asset. They'll want it to be Premier League. We want it to be Premier League. That's what we've got to remember.
So no major concerns if Vinny does go. Is it a case of thanks for what you've done for us, Vinny, and we'll see you down the road, pal, and the Blades will carry on, obviously, like we know they will, but we're not majorly concerned about losing Vinny.
Fair price, I think.
Agreed.
Okay, well, I'll be tidying this up tomorrow in 10-minute transfers, last orders at the bar. No more Vinnie Souza in the boozer, we seem to think, at this stage. And on that note, there's only one way to finish, and that is come on, you red and white wizards.
Up the Sayers Blades.
We...